Fáilte Abhaile, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look into the history and stories behind Leap Castle, Ireland's most haunted castle. But before we begin, if you could hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. We're on the road to 400 subscribers and it'll be awesome. You'll be an absolute legend if you hit that subscribe button. But without further delay, let's dive into the history of Leap Castle. Leap Castle's dark and sinister history has led to its reputation as being by far one of the most haunted castles in Western Europe. The castle stands on a vast rock guarding a strategic pass through the Slieve Bloom Mountains. In the 16th century, the castle was the main stronghold for the O'Carrolls, fierce and powerful Irish chieftains. They ruled over the surrounding territory of Ailey and they termed themselves the Princes of Ailey. It is thought John O'Carroll was responsible for building the earliest part of the castle, and when he died of the plague in 1489, his son Mulroney O'Carroll became head of the O'Carroll clan and continued on with its construction. When Mulroney died in 1532, a bitter and bloody fight for Leap Castle and the leadership of the O'Carroll clan erupted between cousins, illegitimate sons and namesakes, which lasted nearly 100 years. Mulroney's illegitimate son, Farragananum, which translated from Irish means man without name, first seized control and became involved in a vicious dispute with another local clan, the O'Molloys. So, just like Game of Thrones and the Red Wedding, the O'Molloys were invited for a feast after winning a battle for Farragananum, and every one of the O'Molloys was murdered at the castle dinner table. In revenge, the O'Molloys slaughtered Farragananum at Clonis Castle a few weeks later. Farraganum's son Teddy, the One-Eyed, and his cousin Charles now took control of Leap. Teddy was awarded the title Lord Baron of Ailey, but his now jealous cousin Charles assassinated him a few months later. Charles in turn was murdered by his brother, William the Pale, who ruled over Ely from 1554. William had a relatively long reign of 27 years before being slain by the O'Connors. William's son John then assumed control but was quickly murdered by his cousin Mulroney, son of the One-Eyed Teddy. John's murder was then revenged by his illegitimate brother Charles, who did away with Mulroney. Charles was accepted by the English, knighted in 1586, but murdered in another family feud in 1600. 4 O'Carrolls now competed for leadership, and the clan was divided. The English intervened in the name of law and order, and insisted that primogeniture, the right of the firstborn son to inherit the family estate, be upheld. John, the great-nephew of Charles, who was murdered in 1600, became the last of the O'Carrolls to hold the title Chief of Ely. The family lost their estates in the Cromwellian confiscations, and Leap Castle was awarded to Jonathan Darby, who is thought to be one of Cromwell's soldiers of fortune. One version of the events goes that young Darby was captured by the O'Carrolls and held prisoner in a dungeon at Leap. There he was given food and water by Finola, one of O'Carroll's daughters. When she discovered her father was planning to execute him, she sneaked him out the dungeon door, where he climbed up over the battlements and made his escape by jumping from the roof to a large yew tree. He later returned to Leap and married Finola, who was the heiress to the castle. Leap Castle then remained in the hands of the Darby family for about 350 years, throughout which nearly all of the Darby firstborn sons were named Jonathan, creating something of a genealogical headache. In about 1750, the 5th Jonathan Darby remodelled the castle as his mansion house, adding Gothic wings to the north and south sides of the earlier castle. Construction works were continued by many of the successive Darbys, but it was not until the early 1900s that workmen found an obelete, a trapdoor through which prisoners were pushed to fall to their deaths. In the underground dungeon below, the grim discovery was made of approximately 150 human skeletons, all seemingly evidence of the brutal activities carried out in the castle during the O'Carroll's tenure several centuries earlier. 3 full cartloads of bones and skulls were removed from the dungeon. The Lord of the Leap at the time, Jonathan Charles Darby, also made the gruesome discovery of 3 upright skeletons sealed into one of the internal castle walls. He immediately ordered them bricked up, believing his ancestors must have had good reason to put them there in the first place. It was also around this time that Darby's wife Mildred, or as she preferred to be called, Millie, began dabbling in the occult. She held a number of seances at the castle, as well as practicing automatic writing, where a medium would enter a trance whilst holding a pen and produce written words arising from a spiritual or supernatural source. Local tradition had long related that the castle was badly haunted, but it was only now that the ghosts of Leap seemed to get much attention. There were numerous bizarre happenings witnessed in the castle, but Millie was absolutely banned from writing about any of these by her husband. She got around this by using the pen name Mary Andrew, renaming the castle Kilman Castle, and then submitting her findings to the Occult Review magazine. Millie's article was published in the December 1908 edition of the magazine and extends to nearly 40 pages. One part describes a visit to the castle by a relative, Captain Gordon, who stayed for a few nights in one of the castle bedrooms, accompanied by a little fox terrier. On the first night, the captain reported several strange occurrences to his host. These, however, would pale into insignificance when compared to the captain's experience on the second night. This is a letter wrote by him, and he started writing it when he became aware of some unusual scratching on his bedroom door. Securing my revolver, I unlocked the door and flung it wide open. There was no one outside, but a subtle, unknown and horribly vile smell filled my nostrils and sent me back, quite sick, into my room. A few moments later, I heard 1, 2 slow and long scratches down the right side panel of the door, accompanied by a rustling or crushing noise and a heavy thud. Still nothing could be seen. All the time the fox terrier had betrayed signs of extreme terror and kept her eyes fixed with agonized attention on the door. A little while later there came another bump and a long scratch, as though a sharp fingernail were drawn down the paint. Breathless with excitement, I flung open the door. I was utterly terror-stricken and absolutely paralysed by fright. My hand holding the revolver dropped limply to my side, when in the full glare of the lamp I saw the creature that squatted in the doorway. The thing was about the size of a sheep, thin, gaunt and shadowy in parts. It was human, or to be more accurate, inhuman in its vileness, with large holes of blackness for eyes, loose slobbery lips and a thick saliva-dripping jaw sloping back suddenly into its neck. It had no nose, only spreading cancerous cavities, the whole face being one uniform tint of grey. Its forearms were thickly coated with hair, so were its paws, large, loose and hand-shaped. Its lustreless eyes looked incredibly foul as it stared into mine, and a horrible smell which had offended my nostrils before came up into my face, filling me with a deadly nausea. I noticed that the lower half of the creature was indefinite and seemed semi-transparent. I cannot tell you how long we stood thus gazing at each other, but at last the creature gave a series of hops and landed well inside the room. Then my hitherto nervous fingers closed around my revolver, and covering the brute between the eyes, I fired. A crash of lead striking the wood of the cupboard behind the object I aimed at told me that the bullet had gone clean through the thing's head. It did not seem a bit injured, merely turning its vile countenance at the sound of the splintered wood. I took aim once more, but another ping of the bullet into the wardrobe was the only result of that shot. My flesh crept again, and a stifling tightness clutched my throat. Just as I prepared for a third shot, the creature reared itself upright as it sprung upon me. Overcoming the strongest physical repugnance at the thought of the creature touching me, I pressed my revolver right up into its breast and fired. Springing back to avoid its embrace, my ankle twisted and I fell, something striking me a sharp, stinging blow on the temple. When his host rushed in to find out what all the shooting was about, he found a little terrier dog lying dead on the ground next to the unconscious captain. There was no sign of the creature, but it continued to appear to Millie and other castle visitors on many occasions, gaining the name the Thing, the Elemental, or simply just it. Millie described another encounter with the creature. Suddenly 2 hands were laid on my shoulders. I turned around sharply and saw a grey thing standing a couple of feet from me, with its bent arms raised, as if it were cursing me, so sinister, repulsive, and devilish. My friends, who are clever about occult things, say it is what they call an elemental. There seemed to be a myriad of other ghostly spectres inhabiting the castle. Many guests describe seeing the apparition of a tall lady dressed entirely in red, with her hand holding a knife or dagger, raised menacingly in the air. Others witnessed a dark, monk-like figure wearing a black habit, wandering about, often in broad daylight. Millie also recorded that her children saw what she did not, and without exhibiting any signs of fear. They regularly asked her about the lovely lady in red, and the funny old man in black with the shiny head, or the little man in green clothes whom they had seen about the castle. Millie and her husband's time at Leap was cut short during the Troubles of 1922. On the night of the 30th of July, when the couple were away, IRA regulars broke into the castle, bringing with them 30 bombs and 20 cases of petrol. They first got into the wine cellar, where they got so drunk that they were unable to discharge the bombs and managed to burn down only a small part of the castle. They returned the following evening to complete their heinous task. Anything that survived the inferno was looted by the locals. The castle remained a gaunt, burnt-out ruin for over 50 years. In the mid-1930s, following an argument over several unexplained happenings witnessed in the castle before the fire, Jonathan Charles Darby challenged a man to spend just one night in the ruin, for which he would pay him £1,000. The man bedded down for the night, with blankets, candles and a bottle of wine for company, but stayed less than an hour before he was seen running away, screaming for his life. He later refused to divulge any details of what had struck him with so much terror. In 1974, the ruin was bought by Peter Bartlett, an Australian with family connections to its early inhabitants, who had it exorcised and began to restore the castle. Following his death in 1989, Leap was bought by the Ryans, who continued with its restoration, transforming it into their fine family home. So there we have it. Leap Castle is definitely one of the most haunted places in the Emerald Isle. Let me know what you think, and as always, we will talk real soon. This is Jay, this is Our Legends. Good night and good luck.